What was the most ducked up thing you saw in school? Saw a girl stomp on another girl's jaw with her high-heeled boot for looking at her boyfriend at the next lunch table over. I heard she had to get her jaw wired. I hope she was charged with assault. That is disgusting. A guy literally shitting on a teacher's desk. What's up? What's up? Crapped on your desk. Dog. Sup with that? Why was I thinking of that when I read it? A kid clipped the tip of his tongue off with a pair of safety scissors after someone dared him to. One of my brother's friends cut the very tip of his nose off cause someone dared him to edit. His nose is just a little bit flat at the end as far as I know. I haven't seen him in years, but it was a stupid dare and a funny story to tell now. Maybe it was to spite his face. Middle school. I was chilling in the band room and I look out to the hall to see a kid with some sort of liquid coming out of his eye. Later I found out some kid stabbed his eye with a pencil. Ah yes, John Wick's junior years. A kid hung himself on a playground our senior year. I hear his brother found him. This all happened a week after two of the brother's friends, also seniors, died when they wrapped their classic Mustang around a tree near the HS. Made for a rough senior year to say the least. Jesus Christ. Poor guy. How's he doing now? Better. Has a family of his own now. Deleted. That's one old freshman. I love when people call out unclear antecedents like that. These two kids got into fight at my school. Somewhere during the tussle one kid lost his balance and on the way down threw the meanest uppercut ever. He connected on the other kid's bare teeth and pushed them into his gums. He ducked up his own hand really bad. Blood just everywhere and no teachers in sight for like another 3 minutes. This is some Mortal Kombat X-ray vision shit. First ear ripping, then this. Wow. A kid jumped over the balcony to try and beat the rush on mashed potato day. He broke both his legs. Did not get his potatoes. Took me too long to realize mashed potato day is probably just the day your cafeteria serves mashed potatoes and not some kind of big yearly mashed potato event at your school. Oh man, I wish it would been a mashed potato event. That would have been so amazing. But alas, no, just plain old mashed potato day. It was every Friday and always a madhouse trying to get down to the cafeteria due to the way the school was set up. It was a rival football game and the stands were packed. A section of the old wood bleachers collapsed and 20 or so students went to the hospital with numerous broken bones, concussions, and lacerations of various degrees. During the same game, I saw a guy get hit so hard in the leg that it shattered and both bones were showing. Poor kid ended up in a wheelchair for the rest of the school year. I know it has nothing to do with your comment, but it reminded me about a classmate who had his leg broken and had to use a wheelchair. An earthquake happened and he was left all alone in the classroom while everyone else evacuated. That should be a thread on its own. Someone had taken a massive shit. It was larger than a coffee cup in width and considerably longer. So large it was impossible to flush. People were lined up into the halls to see this monstrosity, including faculty. You know it's a small town when a turd calls that much attention. Nobody had a poof knife. And it's gone. Poof. A kid in my school year stabbed one of my friends in the back. Not verbally, I mean with an actual kitchen knife. We were 11. When I was 9 someone stabbed another kid in the back with a maths compass. Just randomly with no real motive or logic. Why do the most violent stories here involve elementary age kids? Saw a kid throw a pickleball paddle at a gym teacher. Knocked her unconscious. Blood everywhere. He was suspended for some time. Was an asshole. That's actually really bad. Was she okay? Concussion and stitches. Paddle clocked her right in the forehead. I have a vivid memory of her clutching the padding you see on gym walls as she went down. She was older, so you could tell after that she was a bit uneasy. Some girl broke up with a guy, so he smeared his shit on her locker and pissed all over it. What's with all the shit stories in this thread? I want to know too. How did so many people get comfortable handling poop? In first grade a boy pulled his pants and underwear to below his knees and laid down on his back. Then a girl spat on him. I don't remember why, but I will never forget that sight. 2 fetishes were born on that day. Only 2. New. When I was 8 we were making cookies in class and they gave us square cheese graters to make chocolate chips with because they didn't trust us with knives. A fair judgment. Some kid was holding a few graters and pretended to be a robot. This girl shouted at him because he wasn't a robot and proceeded to take one of the graters and grate his hand. Lots of blood happened and then a pair of twins both fainted. The duck. What happened to the person who tried to grate the kid's hand? I don't recall her getting in trouble at all. Not that I saw anyway. I think it was just put down as an accident. A couple ducking in the dumpster behind the cafeteria. For the rest of the year, people would walk up behind the dude crinkling paper and asking if it was getting him hard. Just to add a bit, 4 or 5 of my friends and I stumbled upon this event while we were coming back on campus, and one of them went to throw his trash away. It got around the school pretty damn fast. It's probably a good thing that I'm old enough that the smartphone wasn't a thing when I was in high school, because there's a good shot that one of the group would have been dumb and taken a picture that included a 17-year-old having sex, like physically in the dumpster or just behind it in some sort of enclosure inside the dumpster. I was in 9th grade. One of our classmates got drunk, stripped and streaked the lunchroom, gymnasium, basically any place crowded. The staff was afraid to tackle a naked teenager, so we all got an eyeful. Sorry, European here. How old is 9th grade? 14 to 15 Ike. There was a girl I was friends with who had developed early and had pretty big boobs and considered thick for a 5th grader. Hanged with a group of 5 or 6 girls. Most of the girls in this group were short, skinny, and the pretty ones of the class, so she stuck out from that group. During recess these 5 girls ganged up on her and pulled down, sometimes ripping her shirt exposing her chest, and laugh cause they thought it was funny. She'd fight it and tell them to stop, but they'd do it even more, sometimes pinning her arms to the side so they could. She ended up hanging out with me more and finding different friends in middle school. Jesus ducking Christ. This is just straight sexual assault. These were her friends and they were pinning her down and pulling her shirt down. Yeah, friends. There was one kid in my high school that everyone bullied relentlessly. He was pretty overweight and nerdy, but a good kind-hearted person in general. One really popular girl, possibly hottest and meanest in the whole school, decided to humiliate him. So she seduced him and told him to wait for her in the bathroom stall. When she met him over there she lifted her shirt and told him to drop his pants. When he exposed himself she pulled out her phone and snapped a picture, then sent it to everyone she could, telling everyone he was creeping on her and flashed her. He got suspended and was gonna be prosecuted. Few days later he hit her with his car, leaving her paralyzed, and then killed himself. Everything in that story is so ducked up. Someone's phone blew up in our school courtyard. Rest of the day smelled like battery juice. This post was sponsored by Samsung Note 7, a phone that gives you a bombastic feeling. I was in HS in the 90s. They announced the OJ verdict over the PA system. We watched the verdict in my social studies / state history class. This was middle school. Having a guy who killed his wife then come to the school and held my class hostage to try to force the school to give him his son so he could kill him. He was finally caught on his way to kill his parents. Edit. Another thing. Kind of. My chemistry teacher, years after I graduated, worked at the school with his wife. They had adjoining classrooms. He shot and killed the vice principal after school. He was in a meeting with him and the union rep because he was accused of inappropriate contact by a female student. Went out to his car to get his gun. Came back and killed the VP. I think I've heard of this story before. I have told it before. Happened in Chicago. Edit. Apparently this is a common thing. We, entire school, watched some guy jump from 12th floor. Damn. Your school has 12 floors? Wayside School gets a little stranger. The boys in my class bred mold in one of the lockers. They managed to get milk so moldy. Some yellow fluid was all around it. I did that, but to a much milder degree a few years ago in 6th grade. Put a carton of grape juice and left it there for a couple months, and when I checked on it there was some black mold, or whatever. They had bread in there for a whole year. You could smell the mold everywhere near the lockers. I saw the pet teacher getting a heart attack during class and dying. It was ducking scary. Half the teachers at my school are old, some 80 plus, so it is inevitable that will happen at my school one day. They train all the students how to use a defib and do CPR, which I personally think all schools should do anyway at it. Okay, maybe they are actually more like 70, just look older, but still. What are you going to do when your heart stops? I would die. And you're okay with that? I'm okay with the logic of it. I and a bunch of other kids came upon the corpse of a kid who had committed suicide on the school premises the day before, which was a Sunday. He had shot himself in the head in the nice landscaped area that was designated as the official socializing area for the grade 12 students. He was in grade 12. It was established later that he had had some gripes with other kids in his grade and his teachers, and was overall depressed and nihilist. That is why he chose for his body to be discovered by school students / personnel, to make his death have a lasting impact on those he considered his enemies. It was very early in the morning and still fairly dark. When I arrived there was only 6 other people already there, 2 of them girls who were crying. Eventually there were some early bad teachers on the scene and they phoned the police and began chasing away other kids, blocking off the area. I got to see him though. It was not a very grisly scene as it was a neat shot through the temple, but there was a very large amount of dried blood that had run like a river down the pavement to a grassy patch where it stopped. Just some extra information. In my country, schools are not one big building like the American schools on TV. Our schools are more open air due to very mild winters. So instead of one big building we have a bunch of smaller classroom blocks spread out across gardens and sporting grounds. So the body was easily missed by the groundskeepers who arrive early and unlock the gates. I remember something like this happening in my town. I think the sickest part about it was a lot of the student body who first found the corpse started mass sending it and adding it to their stories on Snapchat. That shit spread like wildfire, and it was so distasteful. That's disgusting. A girl was coming back from a doctor's appointment and wasn't there to hear that we couldn't get out equipment for recess. She opened the door, grabbed something and went to leave. The wind kicked up and slammed the door on her hand, and she lost a finger. They rushed her to the hospital and they sewed it back on and eventually it was back to normal, but that was the most ducked up thing I had seen. I actually remember that happening to someone in the daycare my mom put me in. Needless to say I didn't stay in that daycare for very long. What happened? 2 guys in my class would always race to the door when the bell rang and try to get the other one late. One day one of them made it in class with a couple seconds to spare, so he whips around and slams the door closed. I sat in the front of the class at the time and all I see is a pointer finger shoot out from the hinge side of the door and bounce onto one of those metal shelves. The kid began screaming outside the door and my teacher, being the kind lady she was, ran to the door to see what had happened. But before she can get there, I guess she saw the finger and let out a whimper and collapsed to the ground, mind you. This was a matter of seconds and now everyone in my class was alert. But before anyone could react, the kid runs into the classroom and yells my finger. And sure enough there was only a bloody nub where his pointer finger got cleanly cut off. All I remember after that was the other kid began to panic and get more hysterical than the guy who got his finger cut off. Shock is one hell of a drug, lol. By now, a bunch of other kids were up and yelling outside the hallways for help, while I got some tissues for the kid to help the bleeding. In the end the kid went to the and actually got the finger 90% fixed. He says he still can't feel some parts of that finger, but he was fine. The teacher ended up going to the nurse's office and ended up fine. I know she went home for the day, so overall the day was a 6/10. Got less homework TL. Doctor, kid got his finger cut off and door. Teacher passed out. Both ended up fine. Edit. Spelling. Why is it always my dick that gets uneasy whenever I read things like this? Mexican gang member stabbed another Mexican gang member in the neck with a pencil. In class. It was 8th grade. He lived. Juan Wick. Tedigo close mat conuen pinchlpes. I had a friend that was allergic to so many things he had to eat the same thing every day that he brought from home. I literally mean every day for years. He had a very bad day, failed a test, some things happened at home. We met up at lunch and he had 2 slices of pepperoni pizza. He told said today seems like a good day to die and proceeded to wolf down both slices. I had never seen him so happy. I walked him to the nurse's office as he ballooned up. He was hospitalized for 2 weeks. He never regretted the decision. That's kinda funny, just because he had no regrets, but damn, it's sad that schoolwork pushes people in that direction. Yes, but school lunch isn't the way to go. Nothing that I personally saw at my high school was disturbingly ducked up, just weird. Some kid smuggled in a bunch of onions and clogged all the downstairs toilets with them. Who the hell does that? Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.